Our live stream. We're here joined with Matt McLain and Sarah Finnigan-Moran. Good morning, or good afternoon, I should say, to you both. Yeah, so their research was on the Bloomsbury Technology Handbook, which was focusing on the role of learning environments in technology education curricula, where they really focused on technology spaces and how those spaces are used within the technology curriculum. So I will hand it over to Anna now.
Thank you so much for joining us today, guys. I'll pass it along to Matt just to introduce yourself a bit.
Yeah, sure. It's a delight to be here to talk about the chapter. I've been watching what has been going on with this venture for a number of years, and very impressed with the work that goes on. But anyway, I'll get on to myself. So my name is Matt McLain. I started my design and technology life as a teacher in secondary schools way back in the 1990s. Taught for about 12 years. And then became a teacher educator. So for the past 15 years or so, I've done mainly teacher education, and I've done research in design and technology as well. And so I'll pass over to Sarah in a second. But we first came in touch with each other when we weren't in the same country, and then we were in the same country, and it led to this collaboration. So over to you, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Matt. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sarah Finnigan-Moran, and as Matt alluded to, we obviously made contact when I was working internationally. So a little bit about me. I am a practitioner of design and technology. I have worked nationally and internationally for over a decade now. And I'm the subject lead proudly at Liverpool John Moores University, delivering to our trainee teachers on our PGCE programme how to deliver effectively design and technology, alongside doing lots of other bits and bobs with Matt and obviously other DT related things. So it's a pleasure to be here today, and thank you for the opportunity for us to be able to discuss this further with you, our chapter in the book. Thank you.
All right, thank you both. Now we're going to get Anna to get us started on the questioning.
So the first question we want to ask you guys is, with the increase in class sizes in both Canada and the UK, and with the teacher shortages also in effect, how do you think us as pre-service teachers should handle this problem of limited resources and space for the abundance of students, specifically in a technology classroom?
Yeah, it's a really tricky question, and that sort of question around class size has been going on for decades in technology education, whether it's the design and make paradigm or whether it's more technology and engineering type classes. In some countries, they have maximum sizes. So within the UK, in Northern Ireland and in Scotland, there are maximum class sizes legislated by law, but we don't have that in England, and I'm guessing you don't have it the same. There are two approaches you can take. You can either take the offensive approach, and you can fight it and say, look, this is not good enough, it is not safe, and you can draw on a health and safety guidance. So in the UK, we've got a British standard for design and technology, and that lays out class sizes for different activities, and looks at how big physically the class should be, and then how many pupils should go into that. Now, that really depends on your principal or head teacher or senior management in the school, whether they choose to listen to you. But if you bring that to their attention, then it's on their own heads. If an accident happens, you've done your due diligence and your duty to bring to their attention. So that's one approach.
Yeah.
The second approach is to take a more adaptive approach and say, okay, that things are changing. We're going through financially difficult times in many countries around the world, and there's not as much money in the coffers for relatively expensive subjects like design and technology. So maybe we need to change what we do and adapt what resources and equipment that we have, and that's a more radical change. There are some conversations that have been going on here in the UK about what a a different sort of studio approach to design and technology classrooms might be. It's not taking equipment out completely, but it's doing things like working out how you can put equipment onto trolleys that can be moved in and out, so quite secure trolleys, and then plugged into sort of proper bona fide power sources. But again, you still have health and safety issues there. So it's not an easy issue, but the first place, and I'll hand over to Sarah to add in anything else, that I would go and say is it's a health and safety issue first and foremost. And you draw on whatever you've got in terms of a code of practice. So our British standard is a code of practice. Under our legal system, it's not an adopted code of practice, so it doesn't have quite as much weighting, but the case would be is if a school did not take advice and follow that, and if an accident happens, then they would be then liable for not following that code of practice.
Mm-hmm. Just to elaborate a little bit further on Matt said, in relation to those class sizes, here in England, they roughly are around 20 students in a class would be deemed a safe a number of students for practical activities to happen. Alongside, obviously, the second part of your questions with limited resources and space, I think it's a little bit about blue sky thinking as well. And as practitioners of our subject, is not being scared to go out with the classroom and to actually see if there's anybody that can help you as well in terms of industrial links or anybody, local providers that potentially could help you. If you do have any limited resources and it is a particular, for example, a material that you need, if there's maybe a local merchandiser or provider that wouldn't mind if you said, we're from AB school, please could you, assist us, we've got this small unit of work, etc. And lots of people these days you'll find are quite willing to help when they know it's for education and students. So I hope that has answered your question.
Yeah, absolutely. So advocating for yourself and your students and going beyond what you're given as resources to try and outreach is definitely a way to go, for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay.
One thing I've had to do.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So continuing on, we'll move on to the next question, which kind of relates to our last one. So as pre-service teachers entering classrooms focused around technology and vocational education, how can we balance hands-on engagement while maintaining safety and avoiding chaos? So like you mentioned, in the UK, there are some areas that do have limited class sizes, whereas here it's kind of, sometimes we may have an upwards amount of 40 people in a classroom, which isn't limited by the size constraints of the class. It might be a smaller tech room, it may be a larger one. It doesn't matter, they just take those kids regardless. So with that in mind, what are your guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, often to the outsider, and when you're beginning to be a technology teacher, you are to some extent an outsider. A technology environment can seem quite chaotic because You've got pupils doing different things at different times. But one of the encouraging things is that because workshop environments are very clearly more dangerous and more risky, by and large, children and young people respond to that, and you wouldn't. I tend to see the same behaviours as you would see in a playground or in the corridors at break times, which are relatively unsupervised. So a lot of how you control this is the social contract that we have between ourselves as teachers and pupils. That okay, we are working in a high risk environment where there are hazards, and you're relying on the children and young people responding to that, but also making them aware of what the hazards and risks are, how to avoid them, making them collaborators in that process. Don't do what was common practice when I started teaching, where they'd say, "Oh, come on into this workshop. See this machine here? It'll cut your arm right off." Or say, "Okay, for the first week, we're just going to design health and safety posters." But if you engage them as learners and actors within the space you're in, tell them what the hazards are, tell them what the risks are, and how to avoid them. That's one part, and that's good classroom management to manage those spaces. It's not easy because what tends to happen when you begin teaching is your focus is right in front of you. So if, for example, you're demonstrating something, you probably don't even notice anyone in the class the first time you do a demonstration. And then next time you might notice one or two people straight ahead of you. Then your field of vision starts to widen out. And then the really confident teacher, they will see little Johnny here poking his mate there and say, "Right, could you just stop that, thanks?" And carry on. So some of it is understanding that you will grow in confidence and you will grow in awareness. You'll start to listen, and you'll know if you've got pupils using a pillar drill to drill some acrylic, you'll hear that crunch that says, right, that's gonna shatter, and you'll be able to say, "Okay, right, can we just hold on and move on?" So I've talked a lot there again, Sarah.
No worries.
Just to add, I think in relation to your question, we're encouraging all design and technology students to become self-regulated learners. Ultimately, we want to prepare these students to be ready to move on to the next part of their education and ultimately secure jobs. So we, as practitioners of our subjects, are encouraging all the time for self-regulation and for the students to be self-directed. So it would be an organised chaos, if you will, within a design and technology workshop studio room. But how can you help maintain it from looking so chaotic? Again, as Matt alluded to, I think it would be with having clear routines and clear structures. What may they look like? It could be a checklist for a piece of machinery. It could be step-by-step guides. Or you might even want to push it a little bit further, but having QR codes related to pieces of machinery that the children have to interact with, for example, with flipped learning. So they might have to scan the QR code before coming into the classroom so that they are fully aware of your expectations for the health and safety part that you're trying to manage when they're then coming in for the practical. So for me, there are lots of things that I've actually done in practice as well, and it's worked. But I think it's again, it comes with experience, knowing your learners and trusting them as well. I think when the students actually realise that you trust them, once you've explained everything, they will show up for themselves. And I think that's really important, that they need to feel that support from you as the practitioner, that you believe in them, that they are going to make the right decisions as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And knowing the space that you're teaching in as well. So doing simple things like when you're going to be teaching a particular process or using a bit of equipment or material, actually use the same tools and equipment as the children are going to use in the same space. Observe what's going around, work out where the bottlenecks are. So what are the bits of equipment that are in high demand, and how can you manage, either by moving or locating that, or by controlling access to particular items. And even simple things like keep moving around the room, keep your back to the wall so you're always facing in, and you're scanning the room. So you're constantly getting into that habit of doing those little mental risk assessments where you're looking around, you're listening, and that comes with confidence and time.
Thank you guys
Absolutely.
both for your insights on that. Definitely with just making the students aware of the safety, and we talk a lot as well about organization of the classroom layout so we can ensure that everything's moving safely. So that definitely comes to play in your guys' insights. So the next question is, in your section on simulation, you say that the typical technology classroom is not equipped for learning through project-based methods. Based on your 3 to 4 simulations provided, which do you think is the most effective, or would you consider it entirely situation-based altogether?
Yeah. I mean, that was the one question that sort of stumped me. I thought I need to go back and read that chapter again and work out what I wrote. So I'm going to sort of hold my hands up and say I read that sentence and thought, "Ooh, that's a little bit ambiguous there." So, but what I was writing about was in the sort of paradigm of technology education that's more technology and engineering. So it's teaching about technology literacy and technological knowledge. So more laboratory type spaces rather than a design and make type space. It's not always lending itself to that sort of authentic simulation. So in the next edition, I think that sentence needs a little bit of a clarification. But I think it is absolutely a context and situation relevant. So you look at the space you've got, the topic you're covering, the pupils that you're working with, and you make that choice. So being a good teacher and understanding pedagogy is all about understanding the benefits and limitations of every choice you make. There's not a choice that you will make that will not have limitations associated with it, but it's understanding, okay, if I do this, then it'll probably do this, but also this there might be a knock-on effect with that. So I'm going to have to do something to address that. So yeah, it's I wouldn't say there's necessarily a best one. Some are more sort of more challenging. So doing the more sort of heavy duty computerized and equipment size simulation, like some technology curricula have, where you've got robotic arms or you've got conveyor belts. That's quite expensive. Relatively easy to manage because basically the software will run itself. But right down to having simulated activities, and the classic one would be like having an assembly line. So you can talk about, well, why is it quicker to have an assembly line to construct 10 items than it is for one person to construct all 10 of those?
I agree. I think for me, ladies, it's about looking at your curriculum and linking it very clearly to your units or your schemes of work and building back from that. For me, it needs to obviously be purposeful. So anything that you are doing within your studios or your workshops, delivering your design and technology curriculum, it has to be purposeful in order to add value to the students' personal learning journeys. And for me, again, it's about that blue sky thinking. So what else could I be doing? Who else could I contact potentially to bring in or to take the students out to? Now, obviously, if you've got numbers of 40 plus, that may be difficult, albeit, there's opportunities out there that we can make links and branches to external communities and people that would be willing to facilitate and help. Also, one on a little bit of a separate note, something that I have done in the past, just for an example. We have something you all may have heard of him, James Dyson, and he has what he calls the James Dyson Foundation, and he actually loans to schools engineering boxes as well. So there are opportunities and different foundations out there that can obviously facilitate and help you with what you need sometimes in your classrooms as well. So I think for me that was just another element of different organisations that are out there to help support delivering DT effectively and efficiently to your students.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a great point you made there, Sarah, about like reaching out again, like taking advantage of like the people that are around you for sure. And yeah, with simulations, it's really kind of just like as you mentioned, Matt, just situation based. So some simulations you may have better access to versus others you may not have resources for. And it's really just doing what you can in your current situation, which is great. So we'll now move on to our audience questions, if that's okay with you guys.
Sure.
Absolutely, okay. So keeping a technology education program up to date with industry standards and practice in this fast developing world seems to be more important than ever, as you guys have definitely mentioned today. So what are some strategies or tricks of the trade from your experience that teachers can adopt to keep their classroom environments up to date with industry practices?
Oh, that's. Want to come in on this, Sarah? Give me time to think.
Yes,
I
absolutely. Or Sarah, if you're ready.
I'll try my best. I think personally for me, it's about collaboration and making those professional links and relationships. So first of all, I would have a little look at what the issue was in terms of industry that you were trying to build upon. So I don't know, for example, it may be that you want to delve a little bit deeper into metalwork. So I would start to have a little look in my local area and see what was there. And I would even collaboratively put out an email to the staff body. Sometimes you won't know who knows somebody in their family or if they've got any connections with anybody else. You'd be quite surprised. And sometimes even the students' parents. So I don't know whether or not how you communicate with your wider community in terms of your parent body, but sometimes parents are quite willing to help as well if they know that they've got a facility or something to share, or they might even own a business that you could basically link up with. So it's about collaboration, it's about being open, it's about being willing, and again that blue sky thinking and nothing ventured, nothing gained for me in making those industrial links. Finding them, seeking them out, going, having open conversations.
Yeah, I mean, networking with other teaching professionals is really useful for us for a dynamic subject like technology and design and technology that is always changing. You can't rely that things are going to stay the same because even with the long established materials like woods, metals, plastics, fabrics, there's always new approaches, new equipment, new things that and also things that we need to let go of and move on from. So it is a dynamic subject where we need to learn to let go of things, but also we need to learn to embrace things. I think things like having a project going on the side can be helpful. So at times I've really enjoyed having a project. So when I first started teaching, we were designing furniture. So I designed a bit of furniture alongside one of my classes, or both of my classes that I was teaching for GCSE, the sort of 14 to 16-year-old examination group. And when programmable components first started coming along, I looked for kits and I had a go and had a bit of a play with it, tried things out until I felt a bit more confident. But also a third element for me is actually by some of the best CPD, continued professional development, that I've done and I've seen other people do is actually teaching something new. So you get a new unit of work, a new bit of technology or a new approach, and you give it a go and you evaluate it. You treat it like a design project, and you try it out, and you tell the pupils that's what we're doing. You're helping to feedback.
Yeah, so definitely being involved and keeping an open mind is definitely something you need in order to be involved in technology for sure.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it is one of the headaches of a subject like this, that is constantly changing. So you constantly have to be keeping an eye out on what's going on.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think
absolutely.
it is, and it's about keeping your finger on the pulse, isn't it? And seeing what is current and ways that you can do that. Obviously, you're joining any associations that are affiliated with design and technology, with the new research that's constantly coming out.
So the next question is, you mentioned in the article about work-based learning environments and how technology education is important for preparing future leaders to work with integrity. Can you touch on how these qualities are developed through technology education and the benefits it will give students in the walks of their life?
Yeah. I think that question has put the finger on one of the sort of one of the most challenging elements of design and technology, or technology education as a curriculum subject. Is it a vocational subject? Is it a technical subject? Is it an academic subject? And I would say, well, yes to all of those. But also, I would always say, if you talk about technology education in general education, it's not a vocational subject, but it has an industry focus. So it's not about training the future designers and engineers. It's about educating every child in the classroom to have a better understanding. And some of those will go on to go into industry. So I don't know if that sort of answers your question. Sarah, do you want to sort of jump in on that from your perspective?
I think for me, it's about preparing them, isn't it, for the world of work. So I think design and technology is one of the subjects that will always be preparing the students, regardless of your units of work, that you are going to be delivering. And obviously, if you have no strong links with industry, if you are covering the fundamentals, I think you would be ultimately delivering the job that you're intending to do to the students, which is providing them and making them ready to be who they need to be, ready to go out into the world of work.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and that's a really good point. And in different parts of the world, so if you take New Zealand for an example, it's a slightly different approach. So Ruth Lemon has done some really interesting work into the Indigenous Maori education system, and they've got a technology curriculum that looks at that sort of cultural side as well. So I think as well as the industry side, there's the cultural aspect and the society aspect about thinking, okay, so it's not just about us here now in the classroom. It's about looking out to the outside and saying, well, what's the impact on this? But yeah, I think it's having opportunities, as Sarah said, about having links in industry, having local support. Well, what's going on? What are the industries in the local area? Is it farming? Is it manufacture? Is it engineering? Is it fashion? Whatever it might be, and drawing on that, and because that's part of the local culture as well. As well, obviously, of having a broader mindset. You don't want to keep pupils blinkered on just their own community, but using the community and around is a really helpful way of doing that.
Sure, like as we all know, technology is forever changing, ever growing, and I mean, however many years ago technology was in schools, or if it was, it looked completely different than what it does now, and yeah, it's just completely ever changing.
Yes, yes, and if, over the last 30 years, since design and technology came into England, it's moved from being a craft subject that was split into the boys and girls, so it was very gendered. You had the girls did the home economics, and the boys did the woodwork and metalwork. So it was all about preparing girls for the home and boys for factories. And then we had it coming together and saying, okay, well, rather than craft focus, for us, the vision was about it being design and industry focused and technology focused. And it is ever evolving and changing, and it will evolve and change over time. So at the moment, one of the big revolutions that I'm not sure as a global and national communities of technology educators, we've really got a head around the digital revolutions, and so what that means to us. And it's more than just 3D printing or computer aided design. It's, well, what's the impact of the digital world, the metaverse, on this subject that we call technology education or design and technology.
Yeah, for sure. So we're going to get ready to wrap things up now. But thank you both so much for joining us and sharing your thoughts on technology education. We've definitely learned a lot from you, and I'm sure our audience has as well. So thank you both again for your time and sharing your thoughts. Any additional points, Anna?
No, I think we're good. Thank you guys both for coming today.
You're
Welcome. It's
welcome.
been yeah.
And